Hello, everybody. Melinda Pollen, Brown County 4-H Youth Development Educator, and today we're coming with our next Transformation Thursday. We are going to take this time some really exciting and yummy treats to see if we can transform our treats around the house into something that we see every day outside of our house. We are going to be making tasty groundwater or an edible aquifer. And so we'll talk about what an aquifer is in a minute, but we're going to get started by talking a little bit about how water happens, how our drinking water happens. So did you know that the water that we drink is actually groundwater? When it rains outside, the water seeps through our ground and it goes through ground levels and aquifer levels. An aquifer is an underground layer where the material that is underground contains water. It can be very solid, like impassable, or it can be less solid, like sand and gravel or clay. But whatever is that aquifer level is things that are water bearing. So they're filled with water. So when it rains from the sky, it hits the ground and it seeps into our ground level into what we call an aquifer level. There's actually two different kinds of aquifer levels. A confining layer, which is more permeable by the water, means that it can get through and go in and around, and a less permeable layer where water gets caught in it. And then the very bottom of our ground is a bedrock that water can't pass through. So there's three levels: ground levels, aquifer levels that are water compressed, water bearing, and a bedrock level. That is what, and when you'll see right here in the pipe here, it looks like there's a pipe that's labeled as a well. When we need drinking water, sometimes we dig a well and we pipe up the water from inside of that aquifer level where we've got the water being confined in that confining layer. So my question for you is, what do you think happens if we leave trash laying around on the ground? What happens when it rains and there's trash on the ground? We're going to see what happens in our little experiment in a second, where we're going to make our own edible aquifer, and we'll see what happens when the rain comes on top of what we might consider pollution. So how that works is that we have pollution at the top over on the left, on your left-hand side of the screen. Pollution on the top, it rains, the water kind of seeps into the ground, into that unconfined aquifer layer that's made up of gravel and soil. It gets down a little further into the confining layer, then into the confined area where it gets all stuck and the water gets stuck way down deep in our ground. It doesn't make it into the bedrock because, again, the bedrock is so solid that water can't pass through it. On the right-hand side is a picture of what we're going to make. We're going to make an edible aquifer just so we can test and see what that looks like. We're going to use that engineering design principle or the experiential learning model that we've talked about a lot. We gather information, develop solutions, make some prototypes, and then test them out and improve them over time. That is the engineering design process. In 4-H, we use a three-step process that's called the experiential learning model. It is a do, a reflect, and an apply. So we gathered some information a minute ago about the different types of aquifer layers. And now we're going to build something with it. We're going to use our hands and get excited about aquifer levels by making our own edible one. This is what we'll need for the experiment. We get some plastic cups, white if you have them. We didn't have clear plastic cups in our house, so we used some tinted yellow ones. Those work just as fine. You'll need a straw, some measuring cups and spoons, M&Ms, some cookies. We, again, didn't have cookies. We improvised with a brownie. You'll also need some ice cream, maybe an ice cream scoop to get it out, some clear white soda, and some chocolate chips. So let's get started. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your cup, one per person that's building your own edible aquifer, and you're going to place 1 tablespoon of chocolate chips, which are reflecting of those big gravel, big rocks. That's the kind at the bottom layer of our soil that's above the bedrock. It's where the water's kind of going to get trapped. So you're going to take those chocolate chips, measure them out 1 tablespoon, and put them right into your cup. The next thing that you're going to do is you're going to measure out 1/2 cup of vanilla ice cream. The ice cream is going to serve as our kind of our middle layer of aquifer, rocks and clay. You'll put that on top of the chocolate chips. You'll notice then when you'll be able to see it's a little less permeable than some of the other things that we're going to put on top of it. So you'll put that ice cream right on top of those chocolate chips. And then you're going to crush up a cookie. Like I mentioned, in our house, we didn't have any cookies, so we used a brownie. So whatever you have laying around that you can kind of crush up and crumble, and put that right on top of your ice cream. What that's going to symbolize in our aquifer is a gravel and soil. So you're going to kind of crumble up that cookie and put in the gravel and soil right on top of your ice cream, which is again your heavier, more dense rocks and clay. The final thing you're going to add in here are 1 tablespoon of M&Ms. Those are going to kind of, in this scenario, be our pollution. And you'll see why in a second. You're going to sprinkle those on top of your cookies or whatever you used in your third layer there. Just sprinkle those right on top of that third layer. And the final step to make it, to kind of see how this all works and comes together, is to pour 1/4 cup of clear soda, just any one of those white sodas, and gently pour that over the M&Ms, kind of like it's raining outside. So your clear soda, your white soda is like your rain, and your M&Ms are on top of all of the things that might be there, your top layer of ground. And those M&Ms are kind of going to be like it's pollution. Maybe we left some food outside or whatever that might look like. And you'll notice that once you pour that soda on top of it, in the second picture here, you can kind of see the leaching of color, or the color that's starting to go down. That happens when we leave our trash outside and it gets into our groundwater. The very next step that you have is to put a straw along the side of your cup, kind of sliding it down the side there, all the way down to your chocolate chips, which was your very base level of your big rocks that are at the bottom of your soil, that kind of where water gets kind of stuck in our aquifer level. Put it down until it gets into the gravel, rocks, and sand, and then take a sip and see what happens. And what you can kind of pull up that well is going to pull that water or soda up the straw the same way that a well would pull it up if it was an aquifer layer. So this is your chance to keep learning. Where do we find wells? Why do we have them? Have you ever seen a well? Maybe we have a well up in a campground that we use, or in a neighborhood. And then the really important questions are to think about what happened when it rained on top of the pollution. In the picture on the very left, you'll see that the M&Ms kind of sunk down to the bottom of those of the chocolate chips. And you can see there's all sorts of different colors down there. And that's why it's really important that we start to think about how we keep our environment clean, and we pick up our trash and we recycle when we can. What are some other ways that we can make our water cleaner? This is a great opportunity for us to have a conversation and think about how we can make our water and our environment a little bit cleaner. So when you're finished, of course, now you get to eat your amazing treats, but we're also going to ask you to take a picture of your creation and share that on any social media platform that you use. If you wouldn't mind using a couple hashtags for us, hashtag WY4H and hashtag Inspire Kids to Do. That helps us, again, to create a community of like learners that are helping to raise awareness and also create some excitement. We get to see what everyone else is doing out there. If you have questions along the way, please drop us a message. We are here to help however we can. Enjoy the opportunity to transform snacks into an educational opportunity. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have a great day.